Let's stick on politics now, and these figures you won't believe. They're from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. They reveal that a staggering 80% of cigarettes smoked in Australia last year were illegal cigarettes. You may not be surprised by that at all. 8 out of 10, though. The government's crusade to tax smokers into submission. We know it's cost the budget billions of dollars. It's handed a multi-billion-dollar black market straight to criminal gangs. Melbourne has a firebombing of a cigarette shop, it appears, most nights. Mary Aldred and I have talked about this before. She's the Liberal MP for Monash, Deputy Opposition Whip, and co-chair of the Coalition's new Illegal Tobacco Task Force. Mary, I guess those figures, 80% illegal, don't shock you.
No, they don't, Steve. And you only need to look at the 300 fire bombings and associated crime with this to see where the proceeds of those crimes are going. The Illegal Cigarette and Cigarette Commissioner had estimated that the illegal market with tobacco was about 50 to 60%, but the Australian Bureau of Statistics has just blown that out of the water, saying now that only 20% effectively of the tobacco market in Australia is illegal. So the proceeds of those crimes are going to some really terrible activities. Smoking rates are not going down. For the first time in 30 years in Western Australia, there's been an uptick in smoking rates, and the Criminal Intelligence Wastewater Report shows a 4% increase across Australia in metro and regional areas. So the government are just failing on every front here, and they will not address the elephant in the room, which is the exorbitantly high tobacco excise tax.
I want to talk to you about your task force in a moment. I don't know if I've got a wrong sense of this, but it seems to me that there's been a little bit of a move on from burning down tobacco stores, and they're now concentrating on booze shops and the entertainment industry. That may indicate to me, Mary, you'd be better to judge to make a judgment on this than me. That means to me that perhaps the illegals have won the war. They don't have to keep burning down shops anymore because they've got all the customers.
Well, the federal government, through its stubbornness on this issue, have just completely outsourced the market to the tune of 80% to crime gangs and tobacco warlords. And so there is a really close link between illicit tobacco and the growing illegal alcohol market, which we're now seeing take hold. And my real worry, Steve, is that if, as a government, this federal government don't really tackle illegal tobacco, we are going to see the illegal alcohol market get completely out of control, and nobody wants to see that.
What will the task force attempt to do? I mean, the government has all the power. I mean, they clearly don't want to bring down the excise on tobacco because, I mean, you know, they're desperate for money, and the Border Force don't have the resources, it wouldn't seem, to try and stop these things coming in from the country. What would your task force have the government do?
Well, the Coalition's task force has done the policy homework that the federal government refuses to do. So over the last couple of months, Senator Richard Colbeck, my co-chair, and I have done a range of consultations with economists like Sol Eslake, who is certainly not tied to any one party. He said that the excise tax should be coming down. We've done a number of health roundtables with people like Dr. Nick Coatsworth, the former Deputy Australian Chief Health Officer, who happens to also be a respiratory specialist. We could not get a better qualified medical person on this issue. He said the excise tax should be coming down. We've consulted with small businesses and retailers like Janet from the Longwarry Friendly Grocer in my electorate, who was RAM raided. And we've also spoken to law enforcement at a state and federal level. You mentioned Border Force. Now, interestingly, there's a Senate inquiry on this issue at the moment, and Border Force have come as close as they are allowed to, with the constraints that they have, in saying that enforcement alone will not fix this issue. In other words, we need a Swiss Army knife approach of policy options. And so that's the work that the Coalition's task force have done. We've completed our work and we'll be moving to the next steps very shortly. But we're prepared to have an honest conversation with Australia about this issue in a way that the government are not there all over the place. Late last year, Murray Watt told Senate estimates that there was no link between the very high excise tax and illicit tobacco crime. But then you've had Julian Hill, the Assistant Customs Minister, more recently say that you'd have to be deluded or lying not to see the link. And more interestingly, last week, Mark Butler said that he did see a link there, but there was not yet any work done on modelling effectively to paint a solution. And so they're all of the things that Richard and I have been working very hard on.
Keep up the fight, Mary. We'll keep an eye on it. Thanks for joining us, Mary Aldred there. And that's just crazy, isn't it? 80% of cigarettes are now illegal.